Hey everyone, it's Nathan Orenstein with the No Show's January Review Roundup. Each month I'm going to be doing a review roundup where I briefly talk about the movies I saw this past month that I wasn't able to make a full video on for whatever reason. For January's review roundup, we've got a bit of a horror theme going on, so I'm going to be talking about The Grudge, The Turning, and Gretel and Hansel. I'm just going to talk about these movies in the order in which I saw them, so let's start with The Grudge. So The Grudge is sort of a reboot of 2004's The Grudge, which is a remake of the Japanese horror film Ju-on the Grudge. And I'm not really a big fan of either of these two previous movies, but I can say for certain that this reboot does not help the franchise whatsoever. Like the films that came before it, The Grudge tells its story in sort of a disjointed and achronological way, so you can see things from varying perspectives at different times. And while this works for the most part in the previous films of the franchise, in this movie it kind of feels like they took the story, threw it in a blender, and served it to unsuspecting audiences. This resulting smoothie has a story structure that doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't even serve any creative purpose. And when you mix the original story up beyond recognition like this, you lose any tension that you might have had going from scene to scene. Not like there was much tension to begin with. The jump scares don't even work because the movie is so poorly lit you can't see what's happening for half of it. The only tension you get is the audience just waiting for the loud noise that accompanies every crappy jump scare in every crappy horror movie. It's not real horror if your audience can see the scare from a mile away. This movie also suffers from lazily written dialogue and some truly awful acting. Lin Shaye does make an appearance here, and she's fantastic as always, but her character is underutilized and isn't around to make any meaningful impact on the film. The Grudge is kind of just a 90-minute experience of pure nothingness, and hardly anything about it comes to mind when I try to think about it. It's definitely not worth a watch, and I'm going to be giving The Grudge a 2 out of 10. Next up is The Turning, which, believe it or not, is somehow even worse than The Grudge. The Turning is what happens when you put literally zero effort into a horror movie. It's a haunted house movie, I guess. Nothing happens in the entire film, so that's really the best classification I could give. Basically, this woman goes to live in this giant mansion with these two kids as an in-house teacher or something, and bad, spooky things start to happen. I really can't give any more explanation because the screenplay is so bad, and there's no explanation for anything. The dialogue is really bad too, and it's delivered by a generally underwhelming cast. The exception being Finn Wolfhard, of course, who gives a performance so bad that it feels like he's doing it on purpose. But I don't know, Finn Wolfhard's a terrible actor, so this could be him at his best too. Who knows? This movie is just not scary at all either. They somehow managed to screw up jump scares, which are arguably the easiest and cheapest tricks in all of cinema. I've never seen a film screw up jump scares this bad. I didn't know it was possible. Plus, every time anything remotely exciting happens, the editing turns into this whirlwind of cuts and random shots, and you get absolutely no feel for what you just witnessed. And when you actually do see the ghosts that haunt this house, they literally look like something out of a $100 student film. The Turning also has one of the most abrupt endings I've ever seen. It just ends right in the middle of what would be considered the climax, I guess. It's like the production team ran out of budget and they just were like, all right, that's a wrap. I don't get it. Anyways, that's all I have to say about this one. I didn't even do it justice, but please don't go watch this movie, even out of morbid curiosity. The Turning is genuinely one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and I'm going to be giving it my lowest possible rating of a 1 out of 10. Luckily, Gretel and Hansel actually fares much better than The Grudge and The Turning. It's an expanded telling of the original Hansel and Gretel fairy tale that puts an added emphasis on Gretel's character this time around. There's also a bigger focus on supernatural elements that serves to flesh out the story a bit more. I'll admit, Gretel and Hansel is definitely a case of style over substance. But this movie is surprisingly gorgeous. Every shot is incredible, and they blend with this heavy modern soundtrack that creates this weird, surreal atmosphere that manages to stick around for the entire film. It's creepier more than it is actually scary, but I think that fits this film well. The story itself is still relatively bare, and the first 20 minutes or so do kind of meander along, but it's enough to lay the groundwork for the audio-visual experience to really kind of control the film. This film is also at its best when it's not saying much, and there's just something that's kind of off about the dialogue. The content of the dialogue is fine, it's just that the sentence structure or something is just fundamentally kind of weird with every sentence. I don't know how to describe it. Sorry. Luckily, Sophia Lillis gives a great performance as Gretel, and Alice Krige is great as the witch, too. Sam Leakey gives one of the most robotic performances I've ever seen as Hansel, but luckily he's not really a super important part of this film. If you're into artsier horror films and you really value an amazing atmosphere, then I highly suggest you check this one out. And I'm going to be giving Gretel and Hansel a 7 out of 10. Well, that was the No-Shows review roundup for January. If you liked the video, then go ahead and like and subscribe, and comment down below if you like this structure and if I should keep doing it every month. Also, if I missed any films this month, let me know down below too if there are any worth watching. I'll be reviewing Birds of Prey within the next few days, so click that bell to get notifications for whenever I post. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. See you next time.